All right, so we're back for another deep dive into business English. This is episode 5, and as always, we are speaking nice and slowly for you.
That's right.
And this time we are looking at some phrases you can use during those sometimes terrifying business meetings.
Oh, yeah.
So whether you're trying to politely suggest an idea or you need to get some clarification on something, or maybe you even have to give some feedback,
Yeah.
we're going to break down some of the best phrases you can use and explain why they work so you can feel confident walking into your next meeting.
Yeah, meetings can be tricky. It's like this delicate dance of communication, and finding the right phrase can make all the difference in how your message comes across.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I know I always struggle with trying not to sound too forceful,
Mm-hmm.
especially when I'm excited about an idea.
Yeah, I get that.
It's like, how do you get your point across without sounding too aggressive?
Well, that's actually where a phrase like, I suggest we consider, can be really helpful.
Oh,
Just that small change in language can make a big difference because it shows you're open to other people's input
yeah.
and that you want to work together. Like, for example, instead of saying, we need to change this process, which sounds kind of demanding,
Yeah.
you could say something like, I suggest we consider streamlining the workflow to improve efficiency.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
It does sound a lot more like a team effort and less like you're telling people what to do.
exactly.
So, what about when you're trying to brainstorm and get other people to share their ideas?
Well, in those situations, I really like to use the phrase, one possible approach could be.
Okay.
It's a great way to throw out an idea without sort of shutting down other possibilities.
Right.
Like, let's say you're talking about a new marketing campaign. You could say, one possible approach could be to focus on social media engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of opens the door for other people to chime in, you know?
Mm.
Maybe they'll build on your idea, or maybe they'll have a completely different approach.
Right. And it makes it clear that you're not saying this is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
It's just a starting point.
Exactly.
Okay, so that covers suggesting ideas.
Uh-huh.
But what about those times when you're in a meeting and you have no clue what's going on?
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
It can be so awkward to admit that you don't understand something.
It really can be. But honestly, it's even more awkward to pretend you understand and then mess things up later because you were too afraid to ask.
Oh, yeah.
That's why it's so important to have a phrase like, could you clarify what you mean by ready to go?
Okay.
Like, if someone uses a term you're not familiar with, let's say they start talking about synergy.
Mm-hmm.
You can just say, could you clarify what you mean by synergy in this context?
Okay, so that's for when you need a quick explanation.
Right.
But what if you need more than just a clarification? Like, what if you're completely lost?
Then don't hesitate to say, I'm not sure I understand. Could you explain that further? This is especially helpful when someone's explaining something really complex, like a detailed project plan or something.
Right.
And it shows that you're genuinely trying to follow along, and it helps make sure everyone's on the same page.
Right. It's much better to clear things up in the moment than to try and figure it out later.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've covered suggesting ideas and asking for clarification. What about agreeing with someone? How do you do that in a way that sounds professional?
Well, expressing agreement is really important in a meeting because it helps build consensus and it keeps things moving forward.
Okay.
And a really simple phrase, like I completely agree with your point about, can be very effective. It shows that you're engaged and that you're on board.
Okay.
Like, let's say someone presents a fantastic idea for improving customer service. You could say, I completely agree with your point about the need for more personalized interactions.
Right.
It's simple, but it gets the point across.
Yeah, it shows that you're not just nodding along, you're actually listening and thinking about what they're saying.
Exactly. And you can even take it a step further by adding, that makes a lot of sense, especially considering, and then you can provide some context.
Okay.
So you could say that makes a lot of sense, especially considering our recent customer feedback surveys.
Oh, that's a good one. It shows that you've really thought about the issue and that you're not just agreeing for the sake of agreeing.
Exactly.
All right, so now we know how to agree with someone, but what about those times when you want to go above and beyond and offer help?
Well, in that case, a proactive approach is always appreciated. So a phrase like, I can assist with that by, can be very helpful.
Okay.
Like, let's say a colleague is struggling to put together a presentation. You could say something like, I can assist with that by creating some visual aids.
Right.
It shows that you're willing to lend a hand and you're not just sitting there waiting for someone to ask you for help.
Right, and sometimes you might even want to take the lead on something.
Absolutely.
So what do you say in those situations?
Well, that's when a phrase like, I'd be happy to take responsibility for, can come in handy.
Oh,
Like, imagine a new project is being discussed and you see an opportunity to really shine. You could say, I'd be happy to take responsibility for leading the market research phase.
mm.
It shows initiative and it demonstrates your willingness to take on a leadership role.
Right, and it also makes it clear that you're not just volunteering to do the easy parts. You're willing to step up and handle the challenging aspects of the project as well.
Exactly.
Now, these are all great phrases for, participating in meetings.
Mm-hmm.
But what about for people who are in leadership roles?
Right.
Are there specific phrases that are particularly helpful for them?
Yeah, for sure, because managing a meeting effectively requires you to be very clear and direct with your communication.
Okay.
So when you're delegating tasks, a phrase like, I'd like you to take charge of, can be really useful.
Mhm.
It's a way to clearly assign responsibility without coming across as bossy or demanding.
Okay.
Like you could say to a team member, I'd like you to take charge of coordinating the launch event, and please keep me updated on your progress.
Right. So you're giving them ownership of the task,
Exactly.
but you're also making it clear that you're still involved and that you expect updates.
Precisely. And when it comes to setting expectations, being clear is super important. So, a phrase like, could you look into this and provide an update by, can be very helpful.
Okay.
And make sure that everyone knows what needs to be done and when it needs to be done by.
Right.
So, for example, you could say, could you look into the feasibility of expanding into the European market and provide an update by the next meeting?
So it sounds like you're emphasizing the importance of clear communication and accountability.
Absolutely.
Now, what about giving feedback, particularly the constructive kind?
Yeah, that can be tough. You want to be honest and helpful without discouraging anyone.
Right.
So, a really effective technique is what's called the sandwich approach.
Oh, okay. I've heard of that.
Yeah, you start by saying something positive,
Mm-hmm.
then you deliver the constructive criticism, and then you end on a positive note again.
Okay. So, like, what would that sound like in a real meeting?
Well, you could say something like, you've made excellent progress on this project, but there are a few areas where we could tighten up the budget. I have no doubt you can make the necessary adjustments.
Oh, I see. So you're acknowledging their hard work.
Precisely. And then you end by expressing confidence in their ability to address those areas.
Right. So it's kind of like softening the blow a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
So to wrap things up, we've covered a lot of ground today, from suggesting ideas to asking for clarification to giving feedback and everything in between.
Yeah, we've gone through a whole range of phrases that can help you feel more confident and more prepared for your next business meeting.
And the key takeaway is that effective communication is a skill that you can develop with practice.
Absolutely. So start by choosing a few of these phrases that resonate with you, and then consciously try to use them in your next meeting.
And of course, be sure to subscribe to Business English Talks for more practical tips and tricks to help you excel in your professional life. We'll be back soon with more deep dives into the world of business communication.
That's right.
Until then, good luck with your meetings.